to Open Dragon Radio. I'm your host, M.L.Ruscsak. I'm here today with Ron Richard. Welcome.
Hi, how are you today? Good.
Good, and yourself?
Doing well. I'm in Southern California and there's no fires today, so I'm glad about it.
That's a wonderful thing. I hope to be out on the West Coast there fairly soon.
Good.
So you have a couple things going on. You have a new book that you just got out, and I'm seeing is on Amazon, called Someday is Today. But something tells me being an author didn't come first.
No, actually, inventing came first. I'm a clinician. I worked in a teaching hospital for 8 years as a respiratory therapist and a paramedic, and that's how I got started inventing products. I invented a product that could help people that were on ventilators communicate with the nurses and the doctors and their family members. It was just a simple communication board with symbols and letters and things. It took me about 6 months of research and interviewing patients that had been on ventilators about what was the most frustrating thing that they had, to deal with when they were in the hospital and they lost their ability to communicate once they were on a ventilator. So I came up with a list of the most common things that they would ask for or request. And that was the first invention that I ever, kind of got into the market. And after that, I got the bug and just started, became a serial inventor and entrepreneur. So I actually also am a touring musician and been touring with a band up until COVID hit and all of our tours and dates were canceled last year. So I took that time to write Someday is Today. You
are doing a lot of good for the world. So going through some of your inventions that you have on your site, I mean, there's not a lot of them I have not heard of. I mean, Medtronics, if you have a pacemaker or a internal defibrillator or a internal heart monitor, Medtronics is the go-to thing for that.
Yeah, they're the largest company in the world that deal with heart attacks and pacemakers and AFib and all kinds of different irregularities that people suffer from heart attacks, which I celebrating 2 months today. I actually had a major heart attack on July the 17th and ended up in the hospital, and the miracle of Medtronic and stents and all those types of things kept me alive. So I firsthand have experienced the technology and how it can help you reinvent your life.
I'm thankful you're here to share your story.
Yeah, thank you.
But what led into your book?
About 3 years ago, I was invited to do a lecture at Stanford for physicians primarily who have ideas, inventions that they've come up with, and they don't know how to get them out of their coffee cup. They basically, it's hard, when you're a doctor, you're not trained to be a business person or take an invention or whatever and commercialize it. So I had around 200 physicians that attended that lecture, and I got a lot of good feedback from it. So when I had the time last year, I started working on the book, and subsequently we've sold hundreds of copies of it. And there's a lot of clinicians that have sent me nice emails saying, thank you so much. This makes it so much easier for me to get my idea from concept to commercialization.
Right. And it's not just doctors that need help doing this. If you have an invention in general, knowing where to go, because not everyone is born with the knowledge that, okay, I have an invention, here's the prototype, or how do I get to the prototype stage? How do I get the funding to do a prototype? There's a lot of things that's involved with inventing anything.
You're absolutely correct. And so my book is not just applicable to clinicians, doctors, nurses, or whatever. It really is a framework that can be used for pretty much anybody that has an invention or an idea, because I go through the fundamentals of doing patent searches. A lot of people that I talk to that come to me and they need help getting their products to market, the first thing I ask them is, have you done a patent search? Because you don't want to get to prototypes and start spending a lot of money on something that somebody already has a patent on and then get it to market and then get sued or have to do cross-licensing or a bunch of other things. Or take your worst case, take your product off the market after you spent enormous amount of time and money and effort to get it to market. So yeah, my book has different chapters that address each key step that it takes to get, like I say, from concept to commercialization. And a lot of it's also funding. I've seen people have great ideas and they just can't get off the launching pad because they lack funding. And how do you get funding? Who do you go to get money to start a company to, get your invention, into the market?
Right. A lot of companies have great ideas and they fail within the first year because they can't find the funding they need. Because where do you go? You have a product. It could be a book, could be a new invention, it could be a new clothing line. Where do you go for funding? How do you get a funding on a product that isn't in place yet?
Right.
That is the catch-22 that a lot of people fall into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if you get, one of the things I've seen, there's a chapter in my book. It talks about, is it a rainmaker or a money pit? And what I found is a lot of times you'll get started on an invention and you'll start working on it, and then you start getting the prototype in the hands of end users, and they give you suggestions. They tell you, well, if you did this or you change that, well, that all takes time and costs more money. So one of the things I tell inventors is be prepared to spend probably twice as much as what you budgeted, and it may take 4 times longer. So it's this 2-4 rule that I kind of apply to getting started, pioneering inventions and getting them on the market. A lot of people run out of money and then they're just kind of stuck with not being able to actually get it to the finish line.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we looked at, let's see, FUBU. When he was developing FUBU clothing,
Mm-hmm.
it was you have to work a 9 to 5 to pay for your 5 to 10.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great example of a guy who he literally worked, I think, 2 or 3 jobs to
Mm-hmm.
try to get enough money to fund FUBU. And now, and then it turned into a huge, huge success.
Right. I use that one because everyone knows FUBU. I mean, unless you lived in a closet for the last 20 years, but if you take the principle, you have to, as an inventor, as an entrepreneur, hey, I have an idea, you have to come up with funds. So you have to have a job to sustain your daily life, plus give you funds enough to invest into what you're building.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just the funding. It takes, I tell inventors, it takes a lot of energy, passion, and patience. And there's a lot of different elements to it. It's an emotional roller coaster when you're starting a new business, a new company, trying to get an invention to market. So you just got to stick with it. And, if you have a vision, you got to always go back to, why did I start this in the first place? And think about your mission statement that you've created about, I was really passionate about X, and therefore Y is going to be the result. And, in my case, what I do with medical devices and the things that I've developed, I've seen firsthand how they can help people, not just here in the United States, but all over the world, because I've literally traveled everywhere and seen how my inventions and my medical products have benefited people and improved the quality of their life.
I mean, medical technology, just as a whole, can be used everywhere. It's needed everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're a third world country or a modern day country. Medical devices save lives. And without inventors coming up with new ways to help people, because this is a takeaway that medical people do, is their whole takeaway is to help someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why we got started. Well, at least that's why I got started in healthcare, is to help others.
That's any person that's in medical, that's the takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're there to help others. We need the inventors to invent things to help other people. It could be reinventing the wheel, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
or making it better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I encourage inventors in the medical field to do. You brought up a good example, reinventing the wheel, but it's really taking a product that you use every day on your patients that you're taking care of, and you see how you could improve that, reinventing the wheel, or how could I make this or improve this? It's almost like an evolutionary sort of a process, because when you start back and you look at certain medical technologies or inventions that were developed back in the 1920s, 1930s, and where we're at today, oh my gosh, it's just like light years ahead. But it's really that basic concept that got it all started. It just evolved over time with clinicians improving things and making them just a little bit better over the years.
I mean, without our inventors, we wouldn't have X-rays, we wouldn't have robotics. And robotics have went from the medical into everything now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just snowballs. But we need you to be the inventors that you are, to give us new products or new ideas to advance life.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's the basis of the book too. It's, if you have a good idea, don't hold on to it. You know, I there's a part of the book that talks about, if you see a need, plant a seed. Well, the need is, how can I make the current technology or product even better? And if you have those ideas, I just encourage people to, you know, get a plan together and really apply what they know and what they understand and create new improvements in products.
Right, and that's a whole thing. It's not just creating a new product. It is taking a face mask and how do you make it so people that are deaf can still read lips? How do you know, that's a major thing in the deaf community, is reading lips when you have a face mask on. So we have the face shields. We've seen a lot of new inventions coming from the pandemic that we wouldn't have thought about 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, and we've also figured out different ways now to deal with, how do you launch a new product in the COVID era where hospitals were shut down and you couldn't go in and demo or see doctors face to face, so you use Zoom or you use digital media. So it's reinventing yourself, but always looking at, you know, how can I move forward with this, with what we have to deal with today? Right.
Everything is evolving, and how we did business 2 years ago isn't how we do business today. And that's across the board. How do you have meetings in boardrooms, but you can't be in the boardroom with everyone? You know, it's the same thing with inventing. We have to reinvent ourselves. However, are you working on a second book?
Well, yeah, I am. The next book I'm actually going to work on is going to be about my career in music, and how I became a songwriter, and how I've met over the years people from lots of different bands like Chris Isaak, Randy Carlisle, people from the Grateful Dead. One of my chapters actually in my book is about my association with the keyboard player from the Dead and how we become friends, but it was through an invention that he had to help his mother. So the title of that chapter is The Mother of All Inventions. And so he invented something that helped his mother, and then turned to me to help commercialize it and you know, get it into a global product launch. And from that, my musical background as well as my inventing and the medical background, it all came together in just a really great relationship.
It's full circle, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's wonderful when you can make a connection from something that's abstract. You don't even think about it. You're doing music for fun. This is not your career path because you're in the medical field, but you're using your career path to help another person in your hobby, your fun time, and it came together and it's beautiful. Yeah, I encourage people, if you read that book, really, that chapter alone has just got so much depth, and it's very warm and heartfelt. You know, so you'll when you read that, you can see firsthand how Jeff Kameny, the keyboard player, loved his mom and wanted to help her, and this was his way of doing that. But in doing that, helping his mother, it turned out to be a product that helped millions of patients all over the world. Can we mention what the product is? Yeah, it was a gel pad that you put over your nose when you're getting ventilated with a mask. Sometimes people's skin breaks down right here when you start
you start bleeding and you get really bad sores there. And then you have to discontinue the therapy. So this gel pad he came up with was made out of a biocompatible material. And he did a lot of research on it and made a prototype and took it to the hospital where his mother was in intensive care because she had this skin breakdown issue. And the doctor said, well, let's try it. And sure enough, it worked great. Then I have an affiliation through the University of San Francisco where his mother was being treated. They called me up and said, hey, there's this guy here. He plays with the Grateful Dead. Could you maybe take a look at his invention? It looks like it could really work pretty well for a lot of patients. So that's how that all started.
That is wonderful. I asked because, of course, medical things are changing every day, and anything that helps someone. I mean, I've known a lot of people that's been on ventilators and, have passed. It's been years now. But at the same time, anything that can help them while they're here helps everyone.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And the thing too about inventing medical products is that the joy I get out of it is I've talked to people that have used my products that have had, like you say, they've been on a ventilator and they've gotten off of it. And they kind of look at life now. It's like, I'm going to reinvent myself because it's such a life-changing experience when you're dependent on some machine to help you breathe. Once you get off of it, you can breathe on your own again. You get the second look at life and go, what can I do moving forward? And that's the reinventing of inventions. And inventing things can help people reinvent their lives, or technology can help them reinvent themselves. They get this second chance, just like I did after my heart attack.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, 2011, I had a medical emergency. And the person I was before 2011 is not the person I am today because of that medical emergency.
Right.
I mean, I had a career path. I was working my career path, and afterwards, my career path went out the window, and I completely reinvented myself because it's not who I was anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, how'd you come up with the name for your program?
Actually, I started Dove and Dragon Publishing back in 2017, and it was for fantasy and mostly authors. And peace, love, harmony, doves for doves, and dragons are universal with protection and guidance. So
yeah, I love it. It's such a cool dichotomy of things. The whole, the imagery and everything. It's just wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I do a lot of wordplay with books as a writer. So for me to find two things that come together in harmony that mean different things to different people, it works. At the same time, I'm able to use this platform to share knowledge across everything, from music to entrepreneur to authors, everything.
Yeah, that's what I liked, or I was attracted to your podcast, was based on the background. It was so diverse, and you bring in all these different elements. It kind of mirrors or parallels to my life, the combination of medical, right brain, left brain, medical versus creating music. It's just a wonderful, I think, mix.
Well, I do try. Thank you very much for noticing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I listened to some of the other people you've interviewed. You did a great job, pulling out, I think, the salient points that are kind of behind each person's story.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the story is universal, but each person, how you tell your story is your story. You should own it. You should be part of it. You have to tell me what's going on because I want to learn from you. That's the whole thing. It's your story. I'm just here to find out what that story is.
Yeah, that was one of the main things that I picked up or came through, from your other interviews. But, in terms of my book, you can find it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. It's Someday is Today. Get your ideas out of your coffee cup and get them on the market. So if you want to pick up a copy, that's basically, you can get it through digital download, or there's printed copies as well available. And my website's inventing.startstoday.com.
See, I didn't even have to ask you where our listeners can find you. You did it all on your own today.
Well, I do quite a few podcasts, and that's one of the elements that people typically ask. But anyway, thank you for mentioning that.
And again, the website is above you if you're watching the video of this, or in the comment section if you're listening to the audio. So, but it's so fun having you on this show today, and thank you so much.
Thank you, and you have a great weekend.
You as well, and for our listeners and our viewers, happy reading.